Hello everybody, welcome to our webinar. I hope that you can hear me. Hope that you can also see me. Let me know if everything is all right, because today, this evening, this webinar, we're going to be exploring something that I would like to share with you as our community. And also there were a couple of questions from my students currently in the group. So I figured that since I'm going to have to say this to plenty of people, it would be a good idea to also give this as a bonus. So we're going to be talking about stains, dirt, and ambient occlusion to add some detail to our furniture, to our objects, just to stain it, just to add a little bit of that extra something into our elements. And thank you everybody that became a member. This means the world to us, and also because you're awesome. Every material that we're going to be talking about today is going to be later added into our member section. So right now you're going to be able to download some of the textures that I'm going to be using for tonight's trick. The scene that we're going to be working with is partially based on one student's the cover was based on one student's image, but we decided to roll with another. That this scene was made by Alexandra Vikrant, and what can I say? It's amazing to have it. Nice to see you again. I like your live stream. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And hello from Turkey. Hello, Onra, Sandra. Hello, Aline. Aline, thank you very much for joining. It's a pleasure to have you. So Rado, hello. Hello, Tom, Sainis, Mamir, and Said. Really, guys, let's get into it, because I believe we've got a lot to cover tonight. I'm going to try to make sure that this webinar is not going to be as lengthy as usual, but you probably will be interested in actually being able to add the dirt. Hey, Adrian. Hey, how are you? It would be nice to be able to add those elements in regardless, right? So where's my pen? Here it is. So what I'm going to try to do is add a little bit of damage to those beams. We're going to be discussing the wood and how to add damage to that, because that's one of the questions that my students currently have. Plus, hey, Maisa, nice to have you. So nice to see you. Juan, hey, Shao. So cool, guys. So in our audience, you're going to also find a couple of our students, and they can tell you a little bit more about our training. So because I forgot to introduce myself for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, my name is Mike, and I'll be your teacher for upcoming 5 minutes before you click away. So Vizacademy is an online school that will teach you how to create photorealistic renders in less than 7 weeks. Currently, as I said, in our audience, we have both members of our channel and also our amazing students. So thank you all for joining. And if you want to explore Vizacademy even further, go to Vizacademy Co UK, and that's it. So let's get into it. What I'm going to try to do is add a little bit of dirt. We're going to be adding that damage to those beams. I'm going to try to add some of the stains, especially in the cooking area. So we're going to just add a little bit of dirt, a little bit of something, but we're going to be deciding where it goes. Plus, I want to add a couple of additional damage, or a bunch of additional damage to other elements, and I'm going to show you how we can make beams to look a little bit older, and I'm going to also show you how to control where the dirt goes in our shot. Really cool. This technique is going to be pretty versatile, and it's going to allow us to create multiple things at the same time. Plus, it's going to increase the realism in our overall scenes and overall shots. Hello, everybody. Tech Pawn, please do not spam. I cannot allow that, and it would be nice that if you would, well, let's say, give yourself a minute to cool down. Now, let's see. Best training ever, lots of information and amazing tricks. Thank you, Juan. So Juan is currently working on his side project. Maybe we're going to be able to give you a couple of glimpses of it if he allows that, but it's a top secret thing, so I'm not going to show anything without his permission. Hi, Abdul from Qatar. Now, the best teacher ever. Hi from Amman. Thank you. Okay, niceties are done. We know who we are, so let's get into it. Hey, Shimon, nice to have you. Okay. First thing I want to show you is not going to be let's say directly related to our scene because it doesn't have plenty of wooden beams, but how about we actually switcheroo one to a wooden beam? So you can see that this is a rather older interior that you definitely want to have a couple of extras in it, right? So we're going to be adding those wooden beams that will be just ginormous. But as it comes to older materials, when we have something like this in our scene, we would be expecting it to have some wear and tear, and we want it to have a little bit of imperfection in it. And because this scene is created by our student, is excellent, but it also could use a little bit of extra something if we can allow for that to happen. So I intentionally deleted all of those niceties that I mentioned. So first thing we're going to be doing is the material. So as I said, we're going to be basing our damage on the wooden textures that I've created for our members. And also, don't worry if you're not a member, but you did participate in our training. Good news for you, because you're going to get an update on our Vizacademy textures soon. So if you need it now, DM me on our communicator, you know where, and I'm going to send you the link earlier. Now, I'm going to be using our basic wood material that we also teach during our training, but I did show how it's done plenty of times, so I don't think it's going to be a valid thing to really show how it's done at the moment. We want to focus on the dirt, right? So let's go ahead and add something that's going to be good size, good measurement, and whatnot. Hey, Tech, don't worry, I just need to make sure that we don't get spammy. So you can see that this wooden beam looks fine. It's just wood, right? I would. And now, although it looks fine, it has a couple of flaws. First of all, we don't see any damage on it, and that kinda sucks. So first thing I'm going to be doing is adding chamfer modifier to it. So we're going to add just a little bit of those rounded up edges. Typically you want to have some of that imperfection, because back in the days those were actually a little bit chamfered, and or we would be seeing some fillet. So let's go for 2 segments in a beam like this. And also, since it's a procedural beam, I'm just going to make sure to add enough geometry to it, so I don't need to add a subdivision modifier, because that's going to be helpful later. Now, we can cut through this object or not, I don't care, we're just not going to. So let's make sure that it's almost resting on this other part. Now, here, to make this look already a little bit better, we already made it look a little bit better, because now it has those chamfers and it's better. But at this point, you want to go to smoothing output and chamfers only, because otherwise our flat element is just going to be too round, and we don't want that at the moment. Also, what I want to do is potentially make sure that the texture I'm using is not going to have any round edges in it itself, because that's going to be redundant since we're using since we're using chamfers. So that's not a must, that's just an option. So now, how do we add that extra, right? So first thing I'm going to do is add a noise to it, because noise is a fantastic modifier that a lot of people for some reason just don't use. So let's go for let's say good value. 5 is going to be enough for us. Because that's going to be just 5 centimeters of wobbliness, so definitely something I like. Also, I'm going to go for y-axis wobbliness on the same level, but we don't have to render each step. This is going to just be faster if we just do this. And now our beam is looking a little bit better, because it has all of those nice, let's say, imperfections. So this is our noise level 1. At this point, if you're really going for detail, you're going to be adding turbo smooth, and you're going to be adding another noise noise level, which is going to have pretty much the same thing on it, but we're going to lower the scale a lot to add all of that, let's say, imperfections, and to add just a little bit of more random waves in it. So it's really going to make this a bit more natural. Again, natural is a very important thing when it comes to wood, right? Especially if we want to make it look old. Okay, we're closer, but still too soft, too smooth. What else can we do? How about we make those beams crack? We can add a little bit of that by creating a very specific setup. I've already prepared it here, so we're going to be able to copy it in a second, but I'm going to walk you through it because I believe it's going to be best to just make sure that it's easy to follow. Now, by the way, guys, meanwhile, if you have any questions about what I'm doing, or you want to learn a little bit more, Brayden, hey, about our training, please feel free to ask those questions now. What I'm going to guide you through is the setup. So let's delete this beautiful thingy, and we're going to be focusing on a very specific material. So as you can see, I've got exactly the same material that I've had for the wood, but instead of just connecting it directly, I've added two extra levels, and those levels are going to be discussed right now. So first, we're going to be adding Corona ambient occlusion. So this is going to be our map that will add a little bit of dirt. At the moment, we're not going to see any effect of it, so it's redundant to add it yet. So now let's make sure to take away the bump because that's also redundant at the moment, and let's see how those look like. I made those intentionally a little bit simpler so we don't need to do it. As you can see, just regular wooden beams, just, you know, something that you would see in any visual, right? So at this point, I want them to break. One rule that you have to remember about and let's say follow is that whenever you want your wood to break, it should be breaking along the lines of how the wood grain goes. So it's actually going to be important for us to keep that in mind. I can show you the receipts for it because there's a couple of sources that I used for the wooden beams, and you can see that cracks typically go along those lines. Not exactly, but along those lines. So we want to make sure that we don't go for something super random. So how do we do that even? Well, the best and simplest way is to go for so-called Corona Decal. And how's it going? It's going really fast because we need to get into the knowledge. Wally, thank you for saying hello. And now what I'm going to show you is a simple object called Corona Decal, and it's a revolutionary object that is changing lives of plenty of 3D artists right now, but we're going to use it in our specific fashion. So we're not only going to be adding a decal that's going to be fun and easy to use, we're going to also make it super duper pro. So first thing you can notice is that decal is going to allow you to paint any color on any object whatsoever. It can either use your base object's mapping on or its own mapping, but that's also going to be very tricky to pull off. Now, what you can see is I'm changing the color, and as long as this is intersecting, it works as if we are using some sort of distance mapping or something similar. We discussed decals plenty of times on our channel, so I reserve the right not to go into it too far, but one of the things we can do is copy our wood material to keep it super duper consistent. So we're going to do that. But again, it's not necessary, especially if you're not using your 3-planar mapping. This is going to happen. So in this case, I refuse to use 3-planar mapping because it's redundant and it's not going to help me a lot. So we're just going to make it simpler. Again, go back to our material. Okay, now let's go for a base color, which is going to be dark, and we want this to be, let's say, semi-opaque, something like this. This is going to be Perfect. Now, it's very important for us because we're going to be adding 2 additional maps. To show you what those maps are, I believe I need to actually open them. And those are going to be very simple maps that we prepared for us. So those are height maps that will create those cracks. Those are specifically traced from photos that we took, and we're going to be able to use them. But to make it actually work, we're also going to need some alpha maps. So first we're going to go for Corona multimap. For some reason, we no longer have the ability of automatically changing item count on batch loading textures. It just doesn't work at this moment. So we're going to go for the crack, but alpha. Wooden textures for the cracks. I think it lacks a little bit of finesse when it comes to the naming scheme. But you can see that now, thanks to adding this opacity, I made sure that this is adding this scarring on my wood. On its own, the color isn't going to be enough, especially that it doesn't necessarily look that good. Mike, help a trick maybe. AMD Ryzen 5 2600X and 16 gigabytes of RAM. IR takes a lifetime to simple scene. Is it going to be a problem during your training? Adrian, the best way to analyze what your processor is capable of, it would be to go to our Corona benchmark. This is going to be the best tool that will tell us if your processor is a problem or not. Corona renderer benchmark, and we just click on that and you can all check this out. So now we're going to go to not start free trial. Okay, also you. Now let's go again. Benchmark, okay. Now this is the Corona 10 benchmark, and we can now test the end user results. So Ryzen 5 isn't going to take ages. From what I can see, this is still a good number. This was the previous machine that I was using. It was even lower than that, and I was working professionally. The only thing that was different is that I had a little bit more RAM. So maybe your scenes are a little bit too beefy and they're loading outside of the RAM, and that's why we're getting that extra long time to render. One of the things that you can do, or trick that you can try pulling off in that instance, is lowering the sampling in your video frame buffer. I do not recommend it because really it's probably not going to be that good of an idea, but what we can do is go to system settings and lower our quality of interactive render. And I don't think, wait a second, where was it? Now, it wasn't the scale. 1 second, because no. Wait a second. This is going to probably speed things up. If you lower the GI-AA balance, you're going to get slightly faster scene load into your video frame buffer. Also, lock the resolution. Chances are that you're stretching out your window and it's loading a larger image. But where's the pass limit? It's always that during our live streams, I'm going to get one random question and I totally forget where the element that I'm talking about is. So frame buffer settings, auto save, and reader output. Honestly, I'm too stupid to answer that at this moment, and I'm just going to say it. Interactive render sampling, yeah. So lower that value and it should also speed things up slightly, but it's also going to lower your performance. I mean, it's not going to render it as high quality. Now, going back to what I was saying, here we've got our first portion of textures. To make them work, we're going to have to set the instance and per decal. So we're going to be using multiple decals, and this is going to be something like this. We're just going to add a couple to highlight what I'm doing right now. So you're going to see that the textures are randomly picked, and that's going to be enough for us to get a very natural looking element. Hello, do you know me? For Tube, it would be hard to know you because, well, it's not like you show your surname. Do you still you still should be okay though. The tutorial, the final scene might take a bit longer. That's exactly, thank you very much, Mr. Shimano. So let's continue. Now, since I've got the scatter, I'm going to also make sure that we use the height maps that I just shown you. I've already have those settings, so I'm going to keep them. We could go for multiple load, output, and input, but nah, this is not going to be easy. Sorry, it's not convenient when it comes to multi-mapping, so I'd rather just do it this way. Okay, so the first maps we loaded were the cracked version, so we're just going to go for the non-alpha version here. So those are the height maps, and here I'm just going to apply this in, and the tricky trick here is to ensure that our decal object is going to have the appropriate values set up for displacement. And right now the displacement is set to positive values, and if we look here, it's just going to slightly go higher, and I don't want that. So we're going to change that, and we're going to make sure that it goes inwards. So here we're going to go for -3, for example. And why are we not reacting to that texture, please? This is something that always happens during the live streams. I just tested it a minute ago, and okay, textures loading, decal, okay, displacement, thank you. So the textures are loaded. I guess it's just 3ds Max being well, being 3ds Max. Excuse me, are we perfect, just perfect. Okay, let's start over, because from what I can see, we're doing something different. Okay, okay, let's a minute ago this was working. So okay, thank you very much for embarrassing me, 3ds Max, and also your culprit here, Corona. So let's do it again. Guys, what am I missing? Because it's a live stream and it's always going to be a double embarrassing. Okay, so perfect. Now, where's the displacement? Add to the base. Okay, perfect. Now, let's not add to the base, but add to the base. Okay. Opacity map works, but freaking... Oh. I got an egg on my face. It just decided not to work. So let's... what's going on? Displace, yes. Okay, displacement, it's working. Minus the plus version. Hello and greetings from Netherlands. Okay, so once again, this is just weird. Let's make sure to do a double test here. So let's test this. Watching you yeah, I mean, a perfect stream to join in when 3ds Max is acting up for some unforespoken reason. So thank you very much, I guess. Decal instance, okay, everything is good here, so let's reseed this, but it just refuses to react. Am I doing something wrong? Thank you, thank you. Once again. Oh, yeah, this is it. I've added Corona displacement modifier. Get from the material. Let's probably that's going to be it. Yes. Oh my god, I was so scared. Maybe Corona render settings you checked. Nah, it was just me adding Corona displacement for this object, and now the objects are standing. Good old restart. I guess it would be that. So the thing is that all of the beams that I've created were semi created in semi procedural way. So as you can see, each of them is going to have a slightly different positioning of textures. And now let's do it again, because Corona is trying to make me cry now. Okay, so all of that, let's convert you to Adobe Poly just for funsies, no more Corona weird stuff. Okay, so let's re-add that material, and this time it's going to work. So sorry for wasting your time here. I was hoping that this is going to be one of those webinars where we go super fast. So the reason why we added those textures with a certain gradient is to ensure that what we're going to be getting is going to have that right value in it. So it's very important for us to make sure that what we're doing is not going to be just a straight up cut into our wood. Well, technically it is, but you get the point. We just want to make sure that we're going to have the right proportions. Also, to just make sure that this is our decal is going to be fitting exactly to the bitmap. We want to select fit to bitmap, select one of the textures, and that's going to change the proportions of our decal. So that's a easy solution for you all, right? So we've got our displacement going on. Now, this is already looking good. I like it, but I want more. And placing all of that on all of those objects is going to take ages, and I don't want to do it at all. So how about we use the good old chaos scatter? So I missed the times when this was Corona scatter. And now let's go ahead and let's add a little bit of that magic. Distribute on targeted objects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's pretty much it. Now distributed object. Now, if I'm going to start looking at this object right now, what we're going to see is, yeah, that. It's not that I didn't want that, it's just that that's not exactly what I was planning for. So it looks cool, but it's definitely not what I wanted. So here we're going to be adding a couple of things. First, let's change the distribution count. Something around 100 is going to be probably enough, but still, oddly enough, all of those objects are randomly distributed. Surprise, it's scatter. Now, technically, we can fix that. So we're going to fix it because now rotation is a given as a 360 by default. So we're going to go for 0. As you can see, all of them are now going to be slicing through our objects. So we want this to be 90 degrees for this scatter and 90 degrees for that. And you can see that now it's going to be kind of better because now we're going to have all of that damage happening on our objects. And this is super duper cool because you can see that all of that is getting all of that damage for free. So we kind of want to make sure that our object is also going to have an angle limit. So we don't want this to, let's say, pour on some kind of unwanted surfaces. So we just want to lower this, unless you want those streaks to be, well, on the sides. More power to you. I'm just going to make sure that we disable the angle limit, so it's just going to look better that way. Now, the limitation here is that at the moment, all of those lines, although going along that path, they're kind of boring, and those lines do not look the way I want it. So I'm going to show you a very neat, easy, simple trick that everybody's going to love, and that is the R values. So whatever value you're going to have in 3ds Max, if you're going to add R as a letter, and let's say type in -5, this is going to be whatever value was typed in here, make it 5 units smaller. So I know that subtracting 5 from 90 is probably not beyond your mental capabilities, but sometimes you're going to be dealing with some sort of weird out values, some angles that are going to be specifically set for specific objects, and those are typically going to be annoying. So hey Aaron, nice to have you. So those are definitely going to be better to just add R +5, and here we've got all of that. And now, thanks to this, we're getting that extra jitter. So the reason why I've added those Corona displacement modifiers to my object was to Corona displacement modifier. The reason why I added it is to increase the subdivision override. You can see that the difference between the two objects are, thank you very much, I'm really fine. So the difference here is that if we increase, is it possible to work normally in Brazil? That's a question to Brazilians. So anybody from Brazil can answer that, please, because I definitely don't know. Well, there are plenty of amazing companies from Brazil, that I can tell you. So here, copy a Corona displacement modifier, and we're going to be able to now copy this modifier if we need to, and look what we have in here. If I paste the modifier, we're going to have a slight increase in quality. And that is why the corona displacement was added in the first place, to ensure that we have the amount of, let's say, displacement that fits our needs. Because I was panicking, I also overdid the extrusion, so pretty much the displacement. Typically, you want to go for something around a -2 or -1. -1 works really well if we only want to add some scarring, so -2 is also going to be good. Here, you can also test out the visibility, so lowering the visibility is going to allow more of the wood to come back. So it's just going to be a difference between a darker tone of the same wood and the wood itself. So normally I just don't. So let's make sure to go back to our wood orange material. So, okay, first I want to go ahead and add Corona color correction to just adjust my colors. Obviously, this is going to be the simplest thing ever. I want this wood to be a little bit brighter and also less saturated. So it's going to have that extra something in it. So -0.2 is going to be an actually perfect value. But typically when desaturating, you want to also follow up with some gamma. So not only darker, but also more desaturated, so more contrasting and better. Fits the mood a bit better now. What do we also want to go for is the Corona ambient occlusion. By default, the ambient occlusion, as you can see, is going to gather in around the corners of our object. So that's going to be a little bit easier that way. So we're going to go for a value 4 or 5 and at 3, and here I'm just going to make sure that I also go for inside values. So here we're going to gain a little bit out of that extra edge. So potentially what I can do is add Corona color correct into occluded color. Now this is going to be very cool because I've got more damage, more darker values. Obviously we want this to not be just black, so we want this to Corona color correct, and depending on what wear and tear we're adding, I'm either going to go for occluded color or unoccluded color. That's going to be brighter. So here, if I want this to look as we had some stretching going, some scratches going on, this was damaged in the process of, let's say, something was scratching for the surface. You can see that this is looking absolutely amazing. But to enhance the effect, I'm also going to add maps, and here I would rather use a texture, but I'm going to go for a more procedural values, either smoke or noise, as noise is going to be good enough. So here, let's test how the noise size works and how it looks on the object, because by default our noise is going to be quite huge, so we want to make it smaller, like really small. As also turn on the fractal, so it's going to look more smoky. And now we're going to go for values like 0.4 and value 0. Oh, actually, this is looking perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. You can see that now it's going to be more damaged. Well, all of them damaged the same way. I don't like that. So we're going to be adding change material map type, and here I'm going to go for another thingy. By the way, greeting from Uzbekistan. I would like to watch how you create buildings in our natural style. We love beautiful Islamic patterns. That's something I am planning on doing at some point, because I believe this is a valid topic to explore. Also, my 3ds Max seems to be doing its thing just like it loves. So since it's a live stream, why not? So I'm just going to go for Corona randomization 360 here, and we're going to reapply it as our map. So the trick here is to go for mesh element and instance, and also 360 in rotation. You also want to have randomize each tile on. Now a base color is on, and you can see that each of them is going to have the let's say most randomized pattern ever. And if I'm going to apply it as our AO distance, instantly we're going to have a bit of different looks, because now this is going to be applied only in the surfaces or certain surfaces. And now I'm going to go for this extra burn version, and you can now see that it actually looks absolutely awesome. We've got nice old beams. We can change the color, or let's say some of its detail from here and there, and thanks to the coloring, we're getting a lot of detail for free out of just one texture. So it's a very powerful technique. Now, if you want to, you can go even higher and go for another CoronaAO and do almost the same thing here. So this is going to be an unoccluded color. Now we apply it in, and just for the funsies, I'm going to change this to green to show you what's going to happen. Now, because this is below our first map, you can see that the default is going to give us the, let's say, the more objects are close to our main starting object, there's going to be more of that value or more of that effect going on. But we want this to be, let's say, in the places where we want it. So again, only the same object occludes. So that way we're going to have all of that in the crevices and damaged areas. So that's really super cool. And now we're going to make sure that we use it correctly. Lower the distance value, and we can zoom in to see the values or see the effect a little bit better. Probably we're not doing an episode on goosebumps. So instead of black, I'm going to re-add the another Corona color correction, but this time we're going to be either selecting a darker or even brighter version to emphasize the effect or damage. So gamma 2 or gamma 5 even, to just emphasize the oldest parts of the wood, and you can now see that it's a nice wear and tear. That's definitely over exaggerated, and you shouldn't be going for such a crazy value. But if we go for a slightly higher color spread, suddenly we're going to see way more of it in the crevices only. So again, only the same object occludes. Now we've got a lot of dirty elements on our wooden beams, and suddenly they look freaking old. So this is going to be just a way of making sure that we've got this. I would say, Zaha, that's going to be a very safe answer. Are you planning to give 3ds Max a lifetime license with your training program? What do you mean lifetime license? There's no entity on the in the world that can give you that. Autodesk doesn't give lifetime licenses, so that's no, that's not happening. I wish it would be possible, but no. We do provide our students with the license for the duration of our training, and that's pretty much more than most of the trainings out there will do anyway. So yes, now what you can now play with as the creme de la creme to make this more interesting, we can go ahead and change the values or surface scattering options. So you can see that this is already looking awesome, and for free, it just thanks to that extra scatter value, we just got some kind of absolutely amazing detail. So item count 60. And now we can see that we're getting all of that done, and this is just beam damage for free. And this is one of my favorite tricks that I wanted to share with you, because honestly, if we look at it and this would be above your head in or in 3ds Max scene, this is amazing. Last thing that you can do to make this more interesting, if you want to, is add displacement to your original material. That's also going to be working on your behalf, because it's obviously going to use the wood grain as the main color, but it's not going to be something that I would be often doing, although it's an amazing thing to do anyway. So yeah, this is what I wanted to show you about the wood beams. So now we can go back to our main scene and go for another dirty trick, because you can now see that this is amazing. With additional maps added, that's double amazing, and we can stack those infinitely to have more and more colors pop up to create dirty or wet stains. So now we're going, sir, can I watch this webinar later? You know what, Gafor? I don't know if we're going to keep this on our YouTube or is it going to be a flash webinar. So depends. I haven't decided yet. It all depends on what the audiences will say. But at the moment, we do not plan to keep it, although it might happen that it's going to pop up in the member section, but it's definitely going to be something that we will be thinking about. At the moment, this is a live stream, a flash mob, so enjoy. Now, what I wanted to also show is that what I also wanted to show you a little bit is that, or let's say mention, is that all of those textures that I've created here and the setup for the material is going to be added for our members. So I'm going to be sending you literally this scene. I'm saving it right now. So for just so you don't need to go through this whole process again from zero. And I believe it's going to be fantastic. So you're going to get this setup so you can use it as a preset in the future. Now, that is awesome. But let's see what we can do to damage our other beams. And that is going to be concrete based beams, because that's going to be a big thing, right? So you know how to do the beams and how to add the damage to the wooden elements, but how about some kind of beams that are made out of concrete actually? So first of all, we need to have a good material for that, because that's another thing that's super duper important in 3ds Max. Whenever you work with quality materials, you're going to get quality results. So let's make sure to create something that's going to be, well, good for us. I think that exploring this inside of the scene is going to be kind of cost effective, because we're going to be dealing with a lot of elements. So let's make sure to explore something similar but different. Same but different. Remember that. I'd really want to watch this again so I can build my library, test it out. By the way, great tricks and thanks. Jungle, thank you very much, and I'm going to try to convince my team that it's worth keeping it. Fingers crossed. But remember, I'm not alone here, so I absolutely must obey the rulings of our team, because it's always good to be a team player. Now, what I'm going to do here is create a very simple mesh. I want it to be an open mesh, so I'm going to first create a copy like this, and this is going to be a good thing for us, because in the second I'm going to be using some extractions. To be honest, and now I realize that we're going to have to do it slightly different due to me being online and not testing other methods. So let's go ahead and actually do it the method that I had pre-prepared. Now, this is a beam. This is just a straight line, and we're going to be adding subdivide modifier, right? So that subdivide is very important for us, because we want to have as many edges on this object as possible without the need of going for turbo smooths and some kind of specific elements. And subdivide is going to be perfect for this job, because it's also going to be doing something specific for the subdivide. It's going to be manipulate the mesh's surface, and that's good in some instances. In some other, it's going to be worse. So here I'm going to go slightly above what I need, and you can see that now it looks like this. It's a huge object. Now, what I want to do next is make sure that I add push or face extrude modifier. We just essentially want to shrink this object a little bit. So push, and we push this a little bit inwards. Not a lot, just a dash like this. So it's going to be essentially inside of our object. It's easier to spot if we actually look at this from a different perspective. You can see that now we're getting that. And the reason why we're trying to make sure that we've got enough edge length is that the deformation is going to be happening in this area a lot. So we need the geometry. Now, with this push, I'm also going to be adding some relax. So that relax is going to make this softer to the touch, and now we no longer have those edges standing out. And again, thanks to the fact that I'm using the method that I used, at the moment we're not getting additional imperfections. So push again. And thanks to relax, our push is going to make the object almost pop like a balloon. So we push it out. Okay, that was too much, just a little bit, and a dash. So the idea is that the more we shrink this here, so we want to go for even 2 centimeters, and the more we repush, the bigger the chamfer is going to be in here. That's a very important thing, because now we want some of those elements to be pushing outwards. Not a lot, just a little bit, and on top of this, we're going to be adding noise or displacement modifier. Depending on which version you would prefer, displacement is going to give us more rocky appearance, but noise is going to be good enough as long as we're going to use the right values. So first we're going to go for the X value, and let's go for 50. That's a lot. Let's go for 5 then. And now 50 on Y, that's a lot again. So let's go for 5. And Z value, we don't need anything. We just want to make sure that this is not going to be too crazy, and we don't want this to be just going outside too much. So even lower this to 3 by 3. And now we're going to be just scaling this down, so we're going to have a lot of that imperfection. Now, this, as I said, is going to be a nice, easy method. So let's keep this in clay mode. And now we're going to, audio is much lower than advertisements volume. Maybe increase the volume a tad. Sorry for that, I didn't realize. I am trying to speak loudly and to the microphone. On my end, it shows that I'm doing kind of good job here and not bursting anybody's eardrums, but I cannot really control the ads volume, and that is something that typically is, well, by design by the ad provider. So sorry for that. They actually have the volume above the standard, that would mean. Sorry, Ben, and welcome. Super nice to have you. So now we select our original. Well, I'm going to trust Ben because I know Ben, and Ben is an amazing person, so he wouldn't lie. Now, what we want to do is keep this as procedural as possible. So what I'm going to do is make sure that we also use Boolean as a modifier. Here, I'm going to go ahead and select my subtract object. So we're pretty much going to be only leaving the part of both objects that intersects or doesn't. I don't know how to explain it. So as long as I'm not going to crash 3ds Max now, we're going to have a really nicely damaged and chipped beam. As you can see, it looks really nasty. I mean, it looks damaged, and well, I kind of overdid it. So because I overdid it, I'm going to go back to my original object, and I'm now going to be able to lower the noise and also work on the scale. So let's go for something like 15. Wait for it to update, and now that's way better. This is looking super cool. Okay, so knowing that we have our damaged beam or damaged object, we're going to be able to re-render this a little bit. So now let's see how it looks. As you can see, it's a very bright render. So we're going to lower our exposure to something like -2. So now we're going to have this thing. Well, the texture is kind of low quality, so we need to update it, and we can barely see any damage being done because the texture isn't really something I would pick myself. It was fairly far away, so it's not going to have that much of an impact on the scene anyway, and plus it's kind of misleading because of that noise. But now with this out of the way, we're going to be able to crash 3ds Max. Thank you. So now we're going to be able to zoom in, and you can see all of that beautiful damage on my object. This is super cool. Again, I am not going to be tooting my horn or patting me on the back too much, but now we can actually do what we just did with the AO a second ago. So CoronaAO, and thanks to the amount of geometry that we're going to be seeing here, let's do a quick test-a-roo, and you can now see that the red color is ever present. Now the green color is barely present, and you can see that it's mostly in the crevices. So we want to go ahead and first of all lower the amount of something around 5. Also, I'm going to be increasing the spread by a lot. So now we can see that the spread is happening mostly in the areas that we cut out. This also gives us a great idea, because now we can use this to our advantage. So I'm going to go back or revert back to the original color in a second, but I believe that this texture doesn't work for me. So I'm going to go ahead and pick another one. So Corona bitmap. Hello, wanted to join earlier. Aisha, hey, how are you? Nice to have you. Hello from Uzbekistan, architect, nice to have you. So what I want to do here is just go to the Vizacademy textures that we, surprise, provide to our students during the training. So let's just go for textures and maybe go to concrete textures and just pick one of those by random. I'm not really looking. Okay. About this class, because you told us this video you are not going to keep, me is dying. So as I said, I'm not sure if we're going to keep it or not, but I'm going to try my best to keep it here. So we just haven't decided yet. So now we're going to need to remap this using a nice good old mapping. So we're going to go for UVW map. And let's make sure that the mapping makes sense. Box something around 250, 250, 250. So it's nice and easy to follow with those textures. Now that looks amazing. Lovely beam, lovely damage, but I want to emphasize the damage and the crevices. So again, we're going to be working with that. Outside, no, inside. Inside is on the edges and on the crevices. So we're going to just make sure that we go for that. And here we go. So what we want to do here is mostly the same thing. So go for maps, general, and apply some sort of cellular, smoke, or noise map. Noise map is going to be set to fractal. Here we're going to go for a higher value, 0.4 or higher. You can instantly see that we're getting a really nice detail here. On top of that, I'm going to be adding additional dirt later. So 25 size, love it. Now let's make sure that the spread is big enough. So 2 centimeters, 5 centimeters, nice. Okay, so Corona color correction it is, and here I'm going to go for the opposite of what I did the previous time. So I'm going to go for a lower value on gamma, so we're definitely going to get dirtier edges, just like on concrete. Look at that. Mwah. I love it. This is just a very nicely chipped edge that everybody's going to be able to recognize and see instantly. And thanks to the fact that we're using the exact same texture as we did for the original, thanks to the Corona color correction, we are not introducing some kind of chaos, and we're not breaking the pattern overall. So it's just looking perfect. Now, the thing is that we want to keep our color spread to minimum as much as we can. So play with that, and also you might want to explore the values in the Z and Y axis, because if we go higher here, you're going to notice that we're getting this all over the place on the top, while we're getting none on the bottom. So maybe if we know that we're going to need this on the bottom, we're going to go for the values below, and now no dirt is let's say gathering on the top. We've got our beautiful crevices that look like cracks, and now thanks to this it's looking better. Let me just try something, because now a question popped into my my head. So let's just take the black and white map for a second, and this is going to be my black white color. Okay, you choose, I guess. And now we're going to also go for our black color here, and let me just check if this now works. Kind of does, but I don't like it. Can we make it stupid? I can, but can we? Let's just explore this, because quick question, this is something that I wasn't planning for. Nah, kind of looks bad. That's due to the amount of color spread that we're adding mostly, but honestly, it doesn't look that good. Nah. I thought that we had something here, but maybe in the base bump, but that's not going to be a good idea at all. So here we've got something that's going to be a very complex setup that really will chip your edge. And now you can see that this is a damaged beam that is very long, and it has all of those details that we mentioned. And this is just one beam that looks, I guess, more natural than the rest of the beams, because you can clearly see the difference. I mean, especially with a darker room like this. This one is just damaged, while this one, thanks to the AO map, is also damaged because we now fixed the material a little bit. But how about we not destroy the geometry at all, because that was a complex thing to pull off, right? So all of that geometry, now we're going to have to optimize, and at some point you're going to get bored. How about we just do almost the same thing, but only based on materials? So again, we're going to focus on another beam and do this third trick that I love, and this is just more subtle for objects that are further away, so don't quote me on this, but this is better. Now, -2, perfect. We're going to keep the same thingy going on, so I want to go for UVW mapping. Mapping is on. Let's go for box mapping, 250, 250, 250. Mwah. Love it. Now the scaling is fine. Now let's just look at it. First thing that you can explore here is base bump maps, Corona, and Corona round edges. Just like that, I'm adding it in and quickly going for the amount of radius that I'm interested in. Samples, we're going to keep it the same way. Only the same object occludes, but honestly, in this case, it's not going to be necessary. And what does this map really do? It mimics, or it pretends that our object is going to have chamfers on it. So the crucial part here is to make sure that our bump is going to be set to exactly 1, because higher values are going to result in some weird lines, and lower values are going to underwhelm the effect. So let's just make sure that we've got enough reflection to really see this effect happening, because it's one of my favorite effects in whole 3ds Max right now, or whole Corona to be exact. And you can now see that we're getting that reflection all over the place. So I guess I should actually switch to a different scene to show it to you. So let's do it, because that's going to look better. Oh, look at that. Just a nice box. Okay, so let's take another scene. A box it is, and we're actually, I should have. Copy to, and just a quick copy of an object. Copy objects, okay. From, oh my god. Okay, paste objects, cool. Oh my god, this was a nightmare. So I need a little bit different, let's say, setup to show it to you. So we're going to quickly set this up. The same mapping, same things, but different environment. So it's going to be easier to look at. Now, this is going to be almost the last thing, because there's one super trick that I want to leave for as a last one. So buckle up for that. And now we're just going to go ahead and not be able to add this map, because 3ds Max is a baby tonight. So thank you very much, my favorite software that I use for well, of my own volition. What's the difference between Corona layered material and CoronaAO? Corona layered material is going to be a little bit different to it, because CoronaAO is only going to be reacting to the geometry that you have on your object. So it's going to be working with edges and intersecting edges mostly, while Corona layered material is going to be a totally different use case. So a layered material in here, this is going to give you a very similar ability to use the same AO, but instead, it's going to be literally layering one material on top of another, and using a mask, you're going to be showing the one that's below it. So it's a very similar technique to the composite technique, but it's more powerful, if you would ask me, because it allows you to mix and blend on specific rules. So it's a super duper powerful thing. So now, knowing that 3ds Max is a baby, let's see what we have in here. How many years of experience do you have? Curious. So my journey with 3ds Max started in 2005, so I would say it's 20 years. Right now, it's definitely 20 years. The first models that I sold were were produced in 3ds Max 8, if I recall correctly. I sold them. The first models that I sold were in 2026. So you could count that I'm, let's say, earning money on 3ds Max since 2006. So that's how I pretty much got my first steps in 3ds Max. So now let's check what measurements we're dealing with. 60 by 100. So again, I'm going to make sure that we're dealing with something that makes more sense. So just 40% of that, and proportionately this is going to be a nice beam. So here you can see now that we've got our material from the previous scene, and thanks to the fact that I'm adding the Corona round edges, I'm getting that nice reflection on the edges. You can see that this is due to our Corona round edges. Obviously, because right now our AO is kind of working against us, we cannot see as much of that fake effect that we wanted. So we're going to use the same effect that I used here, but with a certain degree of additional oomph to it. So Corona mapping randomization, instance and mesh element, we want to make sure that it's going to be randomized each tile, and we want to make sure that it's going to be randomizing 360 like here. So now if I add it as my radius map, you're going to quickly see that we no longer have any effect. Or do we? We do, because at the moment I'm rocking a little bit bigger size of the noise that I need. But if I'm going to lower that and increase the corner around edges distance to something around 5, what you're going to see is a very similar effect to the one that we created in a previous instance, where we have all of those crevices showing on our beam, but not really being there. So this is a fake effect. This is just for the bump, and this is going to be mostly used this way. You can also go for Corona displacement if you want to make sure that this effect is actually there, especially if you're going to increase the radius a little bit and lower the displacement, go for a negative displacement value. You're going to have a little bit better result. So -5 is looking really cool. As you can see, this is a super powerful trick. So our corona around the edges is going to also melt with other objects. So in some cases, it's a good way of dealing with our objects. So again, the rest of it works on cylinders also, right? It does work on everything. Okay, so guys, all of that is, as you can see, our students are here in our audience. So I'm going to take a short second to remind you that Vizacademy is an online school. We created this lovely training that you can join at any time. Well, we work in, let's say, cohorts. So if you want to, you can check the available dates right now. The course is currently open for March, so we're pretty much finishing the recruitation anyway. But since I'm online, I'm going to say it. If you want to join us, do it now, because we're running out of spots, and we're probably going to have to deny a couple of you by move you to the next session. So it would be good if you decide to do it now. So the price of the full training is £2,500. In this price, you're getting 7 weeks of amazing education with both pre-recorded lessons, with 3 webinars per week online live, where you can ask questions and get a review of your current work. After each webinar, you're also going to be getting a homework that's going to be specially tailored for you. A lot of you will, most of the time, that's going to be written in a task, but because you're going to be working on your own individual project that's going to be copyrighted by you, so that's going to be really amazing, because you're going to be able to use it in portfolio, and nobody will ever be able to tell you, hey, that image looks exactly like mine. No, it's an original. Now, the next thing that I wanted to share with you is that our training also has a live chat support, and our support is amazing. So that's all I can really tell you about our training, but there's plenty more to explore. Now, What I also want to do here is potentially make sure that the high and low values are closer to one another. So I'm going to chip the edges even further, and this is looking already amazing. But we're going to be focusing on the base bump value because we're faking it this time. So we're adding the AO, and thanks to the AO and all the crevices that we added, now the chipped edges are also added in the same position. So we're getting all of the best elements in the possible case. I need a scholar. Okay, shame. In that case, please make sure to contact our support. We're going to see what we can do for you. In some cases, there are institutions in some countries that will help you with that. So we might be able to give you some assistance if that's going to be, for example, in a country we operate in. So next thing that I wanted to show you is that right now we've got all of that nice damage, but maybe we could do something extra super duper good. So here I'm going to be now going for my favorite trick, and our box that is supposed to be a beam is suddenly going to be, let's say, our floor, a coffee table, or a wooden beam again. It doesn't matter at the moment because all I want to do is have a semi-flat surface where I'm going to be showing you something awesome. So all of this is going to be now leveled up. So let's move this away, and hence we're going to be introducing you to a Corona distance map. Corona distance is by far my favorite map, and since somebody asked about it, and I think that Arun did, we're going to actually use the map that he specifically asked about. So we're going to be able to explore it even further. So here you can see that layered material is going to be our base material. So we apply it to our object. Here we go. We apply it pressing 1. We cannot leave our base material empty. So we want to make sure that we also connect Corona physical material to it. Now I have this suspicion that I might be rendering in one of the windows. Am I? No. Lucky for me, I'm not. So let's make sure to go to base material, lower this value, and now if I start rendering, we're not going to see much because it's just going to be my base material, and that's how it works. So this is where I was rendering. Now, what we can see here is just a plain object. Now on top of it, I'm going to be adding layer number 1. It's the same object, but with all of that niceties that we already added and chipped edges. This is also great for any kind of slab type of stone that you're going to be adding that extra, chipped edges to tiles or something like this. This is my favorite all-time favorite trick with the edges. Now the AO in here is going to be slightly different because we're going to be using Corona distance, and what we're going to be distancing ourselves from is this very dark, very bad, or let's say just dark, I'm not going to make this more dramatic than it is, material. So here this is all going to be based on AO, so that's fantastic. But what you're going to notice is that in the middle of our object, we should be seeing almost no effect. If we see too much of it, chances are that your CoronaAO is going to be set to, for example, everything occludes. So in some cases, we want to only same object occludes, especially if you're going to have something that's very close to a wall, because otherwise, if it would be close to another object, it would be self-occluding, and that would be very bad for our texture and its quality. So we want to make sure that it's going to be nice and easy. So here I want my base, or the layered material, to be slightly darker. So in here I'm going to ensure that we use the Corona color correction. So Corona color correction, perfect, here it is, and we've got a bit darker tone here, perfect. Honestly, let's leave it black for a second because that's going to emphasize the Corona distance and how it works. So I'm going to put Corona distance into my mask 1. You can instantly see that there are no objects that we're distancing from. Now let's assume, or let's say that we want to create some kind of teapot, some kind of object on our floor, our wall, or next to it. That's going to just add a lot of dirt because it's a stinky object that is wet, and we want to have this thing in or let's say we want that stain to be in a specific shape or position. So here we're going to be adding the distance object, and now you can see that this is now creating this gradient from that element. What's the difference between this and CoronaAO? Mostly it reacts to the distance, not density. So it's going to also rely on our object's density to some extent, but not the same way, because here I'm going to be able to lower this distance, go for color near, so we're going to have a stronger gradient coming from the bottom. You can see how much of that dirt I'm producing, and thanks to that I'm now going to also use the same noise setup that we have here, but I'm going to be able to add extra something to it. So I'm going to be adding this as a distance scaling map, and now you can see that it looks kind of odd. So that means that I need to change my values a little bit. So we're going to be lowering this, and we're going to be following up with our previous map. You can see now that we're getting that extra dirt in here. I want to have more levels, and you know what? Although the levels are looking good and the dirt is looking very natural, I think we could change it to a texture if we want to, or we can just go for turbulence, and that's going to make it look cloudy. So I don't want to do it. I also think that at the moment I need a color inside. So that way I'm going to be swapping those two, swapperoo. Now we've got the stain below our object, and copy and add the white color here, paste. Now, why is this cool? Because this is going to be the only object our distance mapping reacts to. So I'm going to be able to click on renderability of it and disable it. Now I'm going to be adding the stain wherever I want, depending on the shape of my object. And the distance from the original, I'm going to get this nice dirty area that I can set some rules for, because this is obviously going to look nice, but I can change some of those rules. For example, I can change the distance I'm adding, or the fidelity that I'm going to be using. So I could even add 2 layers of distance if I want to, with 2 different maps, but that's going to be way complicated than just putting in some map, making this map a little bit dirtier. So we're going to lower the gamma. Okay, and now we're going to add the same map to our base physical material, and now we're going to have that stained element wherever we go, and it's going to have its own original reflection thanks to the fact that we made those absolutely distinguishable and different. And it also can be used for, as you can see, wet stains, as I mentioned a couple of times. So this is going to be perfect, and viewing from different angles, it looks extremely natural. So why is it cool? Well, mostly because now I can, for example, go to my any kind of object. I can go for the conform, or well, whatever, splines, freehand spline, and I'm going to be nasty here. Let's go for AutoGrid, and let's just draw something like this, right? So here I'm going to make sure that I also go for rendering, enable in viewport, and we're going to now go for a little bit higher values. Whatever method you're going to be using at this point, we're going to be able to go for example, tapper or some kind of path deform. Whatever it is, we're going to be now adding this to our distance from object, and if we, as soon as we do, we're going to have more stains on our objects and our floor, or whatever we're imagining that this is. We're just going to be lowering the values, and now we're going to have specific stains in specific spots that look dirty, or if we want to, those could be just differently displaced and just make this absolutely weird. I'm not going to be showing you the regular mixing because that's something that we show during our training. I'm not going to be showing you some cool mixing because that's also something that I would like to reserve for our training. But here, this is one of the methods that I believe is just awesome, because a lot of you will be needing this kind of fidelity, this kind of freedom to add to your shots wherever you want to have some kind of cables that added that extra dirt on your walls, because sometimes AO is not going to cut it. Sometimes AO is going to be using a slightly different algorithm, and it's just not going to look good. Or you don't want to go for multiple weird, let's say, rules that would make it possible. And in this case, I'm just creating a yellow cable that's going to be on my wall, and you know how sometimes the cables are going to get a little bit hot and they will produce that stainy effect around your walls, and this is going to be just cool. It's simple, it's super duper nice. So with all of those tricks combined, you will be able to add some dirt into your shots, and that's how I would do it. Honestly, this is it for today, guys. And now I'm going to stay for a short Q&A with you, and I'm going to try to follow up on our chat. We can get this word. Oh, Thais, hello, how are you? Thanks for the lesson, great course for learning ArcViz. I would recommend this course for someone else. Thank you, Thais. So Thais is actually our former student, so is Asia. So hello from Poland, hello Archistone, nice to have you. You know that one stone company from Poland that does those songs, right? I'm so glad that it's not you. Now, I'm amazed every time with the tricks you show. I'm amazed that you still watch it. So Asia, in your case, I think that was you that asked about a couple of stains on wooden object. Let's imagine that instead of concrete texture, we're going to be rocking any sort of texture that's going to be, well, wood-based. That's exactly what we can do here, and I'm going to be showing this to our students right now, because this is one of those questions that some of them ask from time to time. So I'm glad that now I'm going to have a go-to video that will help everybody get that sorted. Maybe I overdid the gamma change in here, but look at that. Thanks to the Corona. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Corona Round Edges also has this amazing property. It allows us to pseudo melt with objects, and you can see how it works. It makes those objects kinda, let's say, because it reacts to positioning of other objects, it allows us to get those, oh my god, this is beautiful, those nice effects. So yeah, let's correct this. Let's go for just 0.8, and this way we're going to have a nice woody effect. And so yeah, that's how we can chip in on all of those elements. So okay, let's see. Hello Mike, nice to see you. Hey Archi Studio, nice to see you. Thank you very much from Kiev, and hey, nice, thank you for joining. Will you review that you use to do will you do render review that you used to do before? Yes, Art, I will be doing it. I think we're going to do it soon. It's just that so many things came up, and I was just wondering what we can really do with this knowledge right now. So yes, we will be doing a portfolio and work review. So hello Mike, nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Hello from India. Hi Mike, when will you do a video review of our renders? Oh, this is I can see that this is a highly requested topic. Yes, sorry if you already answered this, but did you place your animation tutorial somewhere already? I can't find any information pointing to them from your website or your social media posts. So Ben, at the moment, because the topic of animation is very, very broad, we're experimenting. I wouldn't say experimenting. We're making sure that it's going to be bulletproof before we record it. At the moment, this is in its early stage where we do live streams for our current groups. So those are extra lessons that they're getting for free, but this is going to be a product later on that we're going to be probably including in our main training, and everybody who joined our training previously is going to be able to obtain it probably by super symbolic price, or it's going to be added for free to the player. This is not something that I have full information on yet, so I cannot promise anything, but I'm definitely not going to be leaving anybody keep from the past hanging, because honestly, our students are the most important for us. So that's something that I would like to absolutely point out. So guys, all of the materials that I've created so far are going to be saved in here, and we're going to be posting that for the group, our group members. So if you are a student of mine, DM me and I'm going to send you all of that right now. And if you are let's say our member on our YouTube channel, you'll find the link already posted. And now what else, what questions do we have an extra? This is going to be just I'm going to take 1 or 2 questions extra. Can we make a custom edited brick wall using a technique? I guess it will be super realistic. Yes, that's exactly what you can do, and that's definitely what I do. So that's one of the things that we actually shown during one of the webinars, so you might want to watch it. Hello Mike, okay. In the course you showed materials and images are top. Yes, that's exactly it. So both modeling materials, and at the moment, as I just answered to Ben, we do follow up with animation. Dear Mike, can you guys do animation course for your students? Natalia, yes, and I'm going to try to make this happen, so our past students are not going to be in a losing position. I want them to be, let's say, treated equally. How do you avoid sun disk light burning through the glass windows? I tried to plant trees, but it affects the shadows. So it's all going to be back to your Corona settings or direct visibility settings. So either it's going to be your sun that needs to be turned invisible, so you can go to Corona and go for Corona Sun, and at that point you can see visible directly, reflections. Turn that all off, and this should mean that your sun is no longer going to be going through, the disk is no longer going to be visible, although it all depends on your other settings, for example, volumetrics or some sort of translucency. So if the sun is going to be directly behind it, there's no way of stopping it. Also, if you're using some sort of HDRI, maybe just rotate the HDRI directly visibly, but leave it so that it produces the light, so it's going to be a switcheroo. What do you do when there's a big scene and there's a lot of grass? How do you handle it with crashes with 32 gigabytes of RAM? Well, it would be advised to, if that's a big scene and you have a budget for it, I would advise you to upgrade to a better station, for example 64 gigabytes of RAM. But let's say that you're on a budget and you cannot do that. In that case, please make sure to consider one of 3 options. Option number 1 is prioritize optimizing your scene. Lower the counts on your scatters. Make sure to split the scatters so that you're only going to be using the scatters in the specific positions and in specific density. Also, make sure to start using the camera cutout for any scatters that you produce, because that's going to also save you a little bit of RAM. Switch all objects to optimization mode. So here you can see that we've got regular object. Now I'm going to go for optimize, and this is going to just optimize the object. Not all objects, especially viewed from a distance, need to be in a full mesh form. Next thing that I would probably consider, if the 2 first options aren't really, if the optimizing your scene is not enough and purchasing a new RAM is not an option, consider actually renting a machine. I mean, like renting online, because there are plenty of services that will allow you to rent a computer for a specific number of hours, and that should do it. You should be able to work that way. And the prices for renting a computer for a week to work on it for 8 hours, it's really dirt cheap right now. But I would probably resort to that the very last option, as a very last option. Can you give a link for the webinar you just mentioned about the bricks? Honestly, no. It's on our channel, so it's probably there, and I don't remember which one it was exactly, because it wasn't part of the, let's say, main topic. It wasn't the main topic, and it was just one of the questions from our viewers. So sorry for that, but I cannot guide you to that. Okay. Thanks for answering my question. You're the real G. Now I'm a G. Guys, I think this is it for today. One last thing that I'd like to ask you for is considering becoming our members, because obviously members are getting a little bit more than regular users. We provide you with scenes, a lot of questions, quotes, and we're going to be giving you more insider knowledge out there. This is pretty much a glimpse of what you can get on our main training, where you can get full access to our support that will answer all of your questions. Also, we've got a whole lineup waiting for our upcoming members. Plus, we are going to be building this restaurant from zero to hero. So we're going to be splitting it for members and non-members. So everybody's going to get something out of it, but our members are definitely going to get more. And now, the last thing that I would like to ask you for before I skedaddle and just go is like, subscribe, and remember to support our channel. It really helps us make more and better content right now, thanks to our members and those amazing people that joined in. Oh, Elvis, hey. So thanks to those amazing people that joined in, we are able to get a slightly better quality for our videos. For example, new camera, better lighting, but then we're also going to be providing higher quality content because we've got more time that we can spend on this instead of doing small projects. So this would be amazing if you would consider just helping us out, and members have a lot more. Now, last thing, do you teach on your course how to get clients? Because I have 3 years experience, and I have and the big problem for me is to get clients, and I think I will quit this field. As Eden, I try to give my students advice how to get them, but I do not guide them exactly. We are also going to be launching a series of called podcasts, I would say, that will also treat on this topic, because it's a very important topic and a lot of people ask about it. So yes, at the moment we are doing some similar content about what you said or asked about to the previous students of our school, to review the portfolios, to get a little bit of a, let's say, community going on. And we're going to be, for example, one of the topics is portfolio as a marketing tool. And this is going to be something, I would say, super important. At the moment, it's tested in Poland. We're going to be testing it in the UK as soon as we know the results we get in Poland. So all of that is going to be a process. We cannot just do everything at once, because there's one mic and plenty of students. I've heard Create has an online machine for creative heavy lifting service. Tight, thank you. That answers Mahir's question. Now, as I said, we're going to be skedaddling right now. Poland mentioned, yay! Now, thank you guys so much for being such an amazing audience. It was a blast, and I sincerely hope that those tricks are going to be helpful to you. So see you next week. We're going to be talking either about some other interior, or we're going to be showing you more tricks, or we're going to be doing some follow-ups on things that I forgot to mention. So once again, let's just have some fun next week. So see you next time, and thanks for the 5th time. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.